March 24, 1865, The Vancouver Times, Victoria, VI, Canada. Spiritualism. To the Editor of Public Opinion, London. Sir, perhaps the following few experiments in animal magnetism will throw some light upon the subject of spiritualism and explain some of the tricks of the so-called mediums. I mesmerized a lad about 16 years of age, and having bound his eyes and placed a hat over his head so as to entirely prevent his seeing, I took several articles from my pocket and, standing behind him, I asked him to describe them, which he did at once and in the most minute manner, telling the reign, date, and value of the coins, and reading the address and postmark on several envelopes. I then took some articles from persons present and asked him to describe them, but in these cases he seemed to lose his power. I, however, soon discovered the reason. I found that, unless I had previously examined the articles submitted to him, he could not describe them, a most remarkable circumstance. After this, I placed him in the kitchen and went upstairs into the drawing room, and by powerfully exercising the will, not a word having been spoken, he came up into the room, his head being all the time done up in the manner described. I then, the youth still being in a comatose state, placed him on his back on the floor, and slowly by magnetic attraction drew his feet up in the air until he overbalanced and fell on his stomach. Now these are facts, and I submit are infinitely more curious than any of the medium tricks. I can vouch for the truth of them, and send my name and address. Yours faithfully, James W. Soane. April 11, 1908. The Bakersfield Californian. Bakersfield, California. Vibration is the law of soul development. New York, April 11. Mrs. Florence Weiland and others have incorporated a new cult which is called the Corporation of the Common Health. She proposes to adopt a number of babies each year and raise them in accord with her ideas, which she explains as follows. Vibration, said Mrs. Weiland, in reply to the reporter's question, is life. Sanity and sex can be controlled through the understanding of the laws of vibration. In fact, no life, health, or sanity can be real except through vibration, the law of the development of the soul. Wonderful souls are about to be born into this world. Prepare for the new reign of the spiritual in the world. The reign of matter is passing, and the new cycle is at hand. Every individual has a soul color, number, keynote, and name. The number indicates the color of your soul. If you have not the right name, that means that your soul is not sufficiently developed. It must pass through more bodies. It must come back until it has worked its problems out. Then you will have the right name given you unconsciously. July 2nd, 1908. The Spokesman Review, Spokane, Washington. Mrs. Cora Kincannon Smith performs ceremony with other mediums and clairvoyants as guests and witnesses. What was probably the first spiritualist marriage ceremony performed in Spokane by a woman took place last night in the rooms of Mrs. Cora Kincannon Smith, the minister of a local band of spiritualists in the Nichols Building. The contracting parties were Miss Matilda Schlichting of Blue Earth, Minnesota, and Herbert H. Busby of Arcadia, Wisconsin, members of Mrs. Smith's class in spiritualism. The ceremony was simple and took little time. The guests were members of Mrs. Smith's following. The bride and bridegroom came to Spokane from their homes in the East for the benefit of their health and were converted to spiritualism while in this city and, it is declared, have developed clairvoyant powers under the tutelage of Mrs. Smith. Most of the guests were clairvoyants, and several were mediums. Mrs. Cora Kincannon Smith's authority to perform marriage ceremonies rests in the fact that she was ordained a minister by the Washington Union Spiritualist Association. The ceremony was the first that she has performed in this state, although she admits that she has married a number of couples at her former home in Minnesota. None of them have been failures, she asserts, as no divorces have been recorded from their number. The bridesmaids last night were Miss Emma Peterson and Miss Alice Myers, both of the city. D.N. Mason, an attorney with offices in the Nichols Building, acted as best man. The rooms were decorated with flowers and white ribbons. The ribbons were draped in one corner of the room, and under these the couple stood while the ceremony was performed. Mrs. Smith wore her ceremonial robe, which she uses in her weekly services in Pacific Hall. It consists of a long gown with a considerable train, which she wears over her ordinary costume. No ring was used, the simple questions and answers and a benediction by the minister completing the formal part of the proceedings. The questions were slightly different from the usual list, and no reference was made to love, honor, and obey. The principal ones were as follows. Do you promise to tenderly care for her in sickness or in trouble, and to endeavor to make her pathway pleasant and full of the sunshine of love? Do you promise to be true to him in prosperity and adversity, and to try to make his life brighter and happier? The benediction was, I, therefore, by the power vested in me, by the laws of the state, pronounce you husband and wife. That which love has joined together, let not discord put asunder. After the ceremony, 2 of the party who are clairvoyants went into a trance and discovered favorable auguries for the newly married couple. Bands of spirit children were seen to enter and heap flowers over the couple, and a golden chain was drawn around them. Refreshments were served, and the couple left last night for a trip to their former homes in Wisconsin and Minnesota. They will return to Spokane to make their home. July 7, 1917. The Evening News, San Jose, California. Theosophist tells of the travels of soul through life. Mrs. Ethel E. Patterson of Los Angeles spoke last night at the Woman's Clubhouse under the auspices of the Theosophical Society on the preparation for the second birth. Mrs. Patterson said in part, There is but one substance, one life above, below or beneath, not a universe, and a people created out of nothing, but coming forth into manifestation as a part of God's existences, made to be an image of His own eternity. Only one small portion of that boundless life was needed to bring the worlds into being, above and beyond all manifestation. He still exists, transcendent and manifest formless, unspeakable, unchanging, the Godhead of the Christian, and eternal unity. While in that fragment of his life in which we live and move and have our being, he always shows himself a Trinity. We, our Father's prodigal sons, have been conscious of the world of form and the devil of our personality, instead of divine image within us, wherein are all the divine potentialities awaiting unfoldment. The blossoming of the God consciousness within us has ever been called the mystic quest, the path of discipleship, the way of the cross, and certain definite qualifications have always been required of the candidate for the second birth, the birth of the mystic Christ in the human heart, which must come before the entering of the straight and narrow way. The Christian mystic says poverty, chastity, and obedience. The Easterner, discrimination, desirelessness, the 6 jewels, control of thought, control of action, tolerance, cheerfulness, one-pointedness, faith, and love. They stand for the same developments, whatever the nomenclature. Only by becoming, at least to some extent, the personification of these virtues, can one become pure enough in heart to see God, the one eternal good, and be born a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, the divine kingdom, which the Master says is within, so becoming safe forever from the dominance of sin, the I, the me, and the mine. Tonight at the Woman's Clubhouse, Mrs. Patterson will continue the path, tracing the progress of the soul through the path of illumination, where clairvoyance, clairaudience, levitation, ecstasy, and other occult powers come without seeking, and explaining why the use of these by the unpurified soul brings spiritual death. The path will be traced to the culmination of the unitive way, when the Christ, triumphant, becomes one with the Father, perfect even as He is perfect. All are welcome.